Can go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Caroline Viola. I'm the recruiting assistant based out of our New York City office, and welcome to our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion webinar on our 2020 Undergraduate Road to Kearney webinar. So tonight we're going to start with our principal out of New York, Wade. He's going to give an overview of our diversity, and then we will go into a Q&A panel. So just a couple logistics. If you do have any questions, please use our Q&A function feature in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can submit the questions to Emily Peer. If those questions do not get answered throughout this, you can also send an email to our careers.ug@kearney.com, and your questions will be answered there. So I'm going to pass it over to Wade.
Awesome. Thanks, Caroline. Good evening, everyone. As Caroline mentioned, my name is Wade Jubry. I'm a principal in our consumer goods and retail practice, and I'm out of the New York office. I'll kind of kick us off tonight and go through just a couple slides that we want to present around DE&I, and then we've got a really awesome panel of Nadia, Nikki, Shri, and Evan, who will introduce themselves in a little more detail once we cover some of the content, and then we really want to open this up and make it as interactive as possible. Really, the goal of all of these are to answer the questions you have and make sure this is as helpful and informative for you all as possible. So please ask away, and hopefully we'll be able to answer all the questions you have. So with that, if we want to jump ahead, so just a couple pages we'll present here, and really just want to set the stage and kind of how, as a firm, we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And at Kearney, it really kind of comes down into three pillars, and for us, it's culture, talent, and with our clients. And I think it really starts with our culture. And as I'm sure many of you have already had interactions with the firm, and if not, if this is your first time and going forward, I think you'll continue to hear the theme of culture. It's really an important part of who we are as a firm and what we look for as we want to kind of have folks and go through recruiting and bring more people into the firm, that finding folks with diverse backgrounds, diversity of thought, diversity of background, upbringing, culture, all of those things are really important because it's something I think that really speaks to who we are and what we do and how what we do is different and what really separates us from other firms. Inclusion being a really big part of that, and really building that kind of throughout the employee journey. And as you come in from your first interaction with Kearney through making senior partner and retiring, and hopefully we've got some folks on the call who will go through that exact life cycle. It's really important that that's embedded into our values and in the way that we approach kind of all of our interactions, internal, external, day to day. And that really then ties into the talent piece. We are very focused on making sure we're bringing in the best talent, but we also want to make sure we're bringing in a diversity of talent. The worst thing we can do is have a bunch of groupthink and everyone who thinks the same and attacks problem the same. The work we do is very complex and dynamic, and it requires a lot of innovation and different thoughts, and not being afraid to step outside the box. And to bring the best solutions, we've got to bring different approaches and different ways of thinking about problem solving. I tell my teams, I tell people in recruiting all the time, if the problems were simple, they wouldn't be calling us to help fix them. So we want to make sure that we've got top talent who approaches problem solving and brings a lot of diversity in thinking and approach to what we do. And then that ties obviously into our clients. You hear all the time around the topic of DE&I, that at the end of the day, it's a business imperative. If you want to be successful, if you want to be a leading company in whatever field you're in, it has to be an emphasis. And for us, that means how we're successful with our clients. And it's something that I personally put a huge emphasis on. I'm always thinking about how I'm bringing different and diverse teams to client problems and into the different accounts that I work on. And it's recognized. Like I can honestly tell you, I have a client who the recent months as everyone, I think, is taking a good hard look at how they are really putting an emphasis on this topic. It's a client that has a long way to go, and they've some of the senior folks have mentioned to me that they've been very appreciative that we have always brought a diverse team, whether it's racial diversity, gender diversity, just different diversity of backgrounds and thoughts, that it's something that they've appreciated and recognizes something that's allowed us to co-create and develop best-in-class solutions with them. So it really has an impact at the end of the day on our ability to win in the market, which is very important. So we jump to the next page, and these are all things that you can look up, but just to kind of touch on a few, it is something that you can see we do have good recognition externally within the market for some ways that we've been successful in emphasizing and celebrating our diversity and inclusion within the firm, whether that's women partners we have who've been named a top 25 consultant by Consulting Magazine, which if you haven't checked that out, is honestly every year it's a really impressive list of leaders within the industry, and to know that we have folks from Kearney who are continually recognized on that is really impressive. We have individual folks, whether John or Beth, as you can see kind of in the middle here, who have been recognized by some The Economist and other leading publications as really being leaders on the topic, and folks who really help drive our diversity agendas. Is really great to know that you've got folks like that at the forefront of the firm. And then also, as you can see from an LGBTQ plus perspective, something that, and we'll talk about some of our diversity networks, but I would say our Proud Network is one of the strongest diversity networks we have, but also one of the most impressive when it comes to some of how they roll out different programming, how they built a community within the firm, how they built a community of allies within the firm. And you can see some of the recognition we have across some really top-notch external recognition for some of the work we've done in that space as well. This is a really important page, and if any of you have you may have seen this. It was something that we did distribute externally. It was put on our LinkedIn and some other external communication. So over the past few months, the firm and our leadership has really taken a hard look at kind of what we're doing to really live what we believe are the right things. And you could see on the left that to this point we have not done enough, but we will do better. In my mind, that's pretty much consistent with every company. If any company is being honest, they would say that they have not done enough when it comes to these topics. And we're no different. And I think we acknowledge that, and that alone, I think, is the first step. And what you see here on these three columns, and I'll spend a little bit of time going through these, are the commitments that we have made that were communicated down from Alex Liu, who's our managing partner, to internally to all employees. But then, as I said, was communicated externally because it is something that is very important and something that we will be holding the firm and all of our leadership accountable to. And again, kind of across three pieces: internally with our people, externally with our clients, and then externally as well with communities and society. So just to go through these quickly, we are committing 1,500 days of action for employees. So this will be for all of our employees as they want to pursue social, racial justice, inclusion, and equity work, that they're going to have full support of the firm to go out and do that and commit those hours to furthering those causes. We've committed to tripling our Black leaders by 2023. So that is our principals, partners on the consulting side, and then from our support services, it's directors and above, in making sure that we're accelerating the Black leadership we have within the firm, and also expanding our training globally, including anti-racism training that will be rolled out. So making sure that this is something that connects across our global firm. with our clients, and these are, I think, really impressive as well when you think about making sure that we're not just focused within our own walls, but we're also making sure that we're living these values and pushing these out in how we engage in the market. So building a supplier development academy to help with build out Black-owned supplier networks and making sure that there's access across many of the categories that we help source, but also then making sure that we get the right supplier diversity included within the clients who are spending a lot of money on those things. We've always had an emphasis and have done really cool pro bono work, but we've made a commitment that we're going to double that. Again, that means that's full support from the firm, that we're going to put people, resources, time, energy, money against supporting Black-owned businesses and organizations. And we have a program that we've rolled out internally we call PARC, People Advocating for Real Change, events that we've done across the firm holistically, as well as the specific office-related events and that have been really impactful, bringing light to topics and shining a light on things and really opening people's eyes to different topics within the DE&I space. And we're going to start inviting clients into those events so we can take them through similar training. And then lastly, outside of that, within our communities and society, I think a really important thing, and I'm sure it's important to many of you, is that we kind of really push to get the vote out. So we have initiatives that are kicking off to support and advocate for fair and safe voting that we've already started that are focused obviously within the U.S. and on this upcoming election. We are also kind of putting our money where our mouth is on the next two when you think about launching of Black Ventures, where we'll be incubating, mentoring, and helping develop Black-owned businesses, taking and supporting that, taking the skills that we have and how businesses operate and optimizing and helping businesses grow and putting that back into the community. And then finally, we'll have committed to $1 million matching for employee donations to organizations across the spectrum that support social justice, inclusion, and racial equality. So happy to answer any questions on these, but did just want to go through and really comment on these 9 pieces are the commitments the firm has made, and now we have like active work happening against each of them to bring them to fruition. All right, and then finally, as I kind of mentioned, and you can see on here, we have 9 different diversity networks, and we think about as you think about entering the workforce and joining a company and how you start to build that community, both within your company as a whole, but also like the more kind of niche communities that you want to form and networks you want to build. I think this is a really great way to get involved, especially early on. And when I think back to when I joined the firm almost 6 years ago, Bill Frazier, who's a vice president in our strategic ops practice, is also one of the leaders of Black at Kearney. He was one of the first people who reached out to me, and he and I have continued to have a great relationship. And now that I'm on the leadership team for the Black at Kearney network, we work together and really strive to push that agenda forward. But you could see that the different networks, and we have good representation across these networks on our kind of panelists today, so happy to discuss these in more detail. But in general, these are communities within the firm that really focus on a number of things. So building support networks, many of them have a global reach. There's mentoring involved. There's a lot of professional development, sharing and celebrating of different heritage. So whether that's Black History Month or Pride Month, there's a lot of great events that get put on throughout the year that are hosted by these different networks with great participation. There's community service involved. There's really a number of different ways to get involved, both kind of building as a network internally, but then finding ways to give back both externally, but also as a way to support and help with intake of more folks who would be looking to join these networks, and as we think about our recruiting process. So as I said, happy to discuss these in more detail if you have any specific questions. All right, so tried to get through that. Hopefully didn't rush through it too much. As I said, we're really happy to answer any questions you have, but we did just want to kind of give a little bit of perspective of how the firm thinks about it and how we're approaching diversity, given the importance it has is just into our values is how we want to operate, but also, as I mentioned, is really as a business imperative. So with that, I think we're going to jump in and do quick intros across the board, since I didn't really do too much detail of an intro, but and then we'll go across each of the panelists, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So as I said, just to get a little more background, out of New York, I went to Bryant University. It's a small school in Rhode Island. Some of my kind of interests and hobbies, I'm a big fan of golf. I watch golf. I try to play. Actually, with COVID and the fact that you can't do anything else, I've probably played more golf this year than I have in the last 5 years, which has been awesome. A big movie fan. As you can kind of see, I took a little creative license in the template said favorite movie, but I have way more than one favorite movie, so I added a bunch in here. I actually just this past weekend got my first puppy, Hudson. I would show you guys, but we actually just on a walk right now, but really excited. I'm a huge dog lover. I grew up with dogs, and the fact that we're working from home right now has given me the opportunity to get one, which has been great. He's awesome. You can see a bunch of the movies in there that I'm interested in. I'm a huge Marvel fan as well. And then my fun fact, just quickly, as you can see, is my last name is pronounced Jubri. The first B is silent. It was supposed to be a middle initial. It accidentally got put all together as my last name on my birth certificate. And I didn't realize that till I was almost 18. And I now have to go with the B-J-U-B-R-E-Y. The rest of my family does not have the B. I'm hopefully getting this fixed soon because I'm getting married next year, and my fiance has made it pretty clear that she's not trying to move forward with the mistake last name. So we're hopefully going to, once these government offices start opening up, I'm going to try to get that taken care of. So yeah, I'll turn it over now, and we'll go through the rest of the panel. But yeah, like I said, really excited to be here and happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Nadia, you're on mute.
I think, yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Thanks. Wait, on a similar note as your first name, last name problem, I have two first names, and currently they're listed wrong on my passport, so I too need to fix that, my U.S. one. But I don't have it on recent yet, so I'm pushing it down the line. Hello, everyone. I'm Nadia. I went to Penn and graduated a little over 2 years ago. I love doing yoga. I love going to museums, and I love exploring and traveling. So, coronavirus has been a big problem because I can't go out of the country. In terms of movies, I love Top Gun, but at the moment I'm rewatching old French films. So I'm rewatching all of the Jean-Luc Godard movies, and I recently saw À bout de souffle, or Breathless, and it's really good. Highly recommend if you haven't seen it, and looking forward to the discussion. So with that, I'll pass it off to Nikki, I think. Yep.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki Lewis. I am a senior analyst out of the Atlanta office. I went to Georgia Tech, did industrial engineering, and graduated about 2 years ago. So for fun, my passions are in the ocean, so scuba diving and free diving. So similarly to Nadia's, been kind of a sad time not being able to do, what you love doing all the time. But piano is another passion which I have picked up. surprisingly, I don't love playing piano in the hotel lobbies. People love to like ask for requests, and that's just not a thing that I want to do when I'm de-stressing. So playing in my own home with my piano has been nice. Cannolis are just like my passion. Also, every time we go to a new city for a project, I look for the best cannoli in town. And then just volunteering with children also. Favorite movie? I actually don't watch any football, but Remember the Titans has always been my favorite. The soundtrack is insane, and I just love the heartwarming story of it. My fun fact, so along the lines of this, diversity inclusion at Kearney conversation, I have had the opportunity to visit offices in 6 different countries since I joined 2 years ago, and I will say that like every time I visited a different Kearney office, it doesn't matter where you're from, they are immediately warming. I went to Madrid, Bogota, Mexico City, Tokyo. Like every time I've gone, they've taken me out to lunch and been like, Nikki's visiting from Atlanta, go stop by the office that she's in and say hi. And so it's not just diversity inclusion in the North America region, but it does expand across borders and apply to all of Kearney, I would say. So yeah, that's me. I guess next we have Sheree.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great, perfect. Thanks, Nikki. I don't think I've visited 6 offices within the U.S., so that's pretty cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Sri Shankar. I'm a senior analyst in the SOP practice, which is our strategic operations practice out of the Chicago office. I got my master's and undergraduate degree in industrial engineering, and I went to Purdue. Some of the things that I like are learning new languages, and I do them by watching TV shows. So I used to watch a lot of Korean drama as a teenager, so I have picked up quite a few Korean words over time. I like to cook a lot, but I don't follow recipes, so I just throw in whatever, and it usually turns out well. I have been reading off late, which has been very nice, and I just picked up Bill Bryson's Walk in the Woods a couple of days ago, and I've been rereading it, and it's been fabulous. I also like walking along neighborhoods and just exploring the city on foot. I do like a lot of movies like Wade and everyone else before me, but Pixar's Bao came to my mind when I read this question, which is the short film that they played after a movie, which was really cute. So I would recommend that to whoever is interested. And of course, Werner Herzog, he's a German director and writer, and I recently watched his movie Fitzcarraldo, and it's pretty crazy and wild. I would recommend it. Fun fact, so when I was at Purdue, I started a company called Reindeer Shuttle, and it was named Reindeer Shuttle because it was supposed to be a winter project transporting students back and forth between airport and the university. So I called it the Reindeer Shuttle, but it ended up becoming a company and it became big, but the name stuck on. So that's it about me, and I look forward to answering some of your questions.
Hey everybody, as you can see, my favorite movie is Remember the Titans as well, so I got super excited when I saw Nikki put that. But how are you doing, everybody? My name is Evan Ward. I went to school at Howard University in Washington, D.C., where I was a finance major. Personal interests are basketball. I played since I think I was about 5 years old, and I always try to play as well now. There are people who play at this park by me every morning, so I try to get my workout that way. I'm looking at my interests, and they look like very consulting interests, but I am interested in real estate and group economics. And then a fun fact about me is that I was homeschooled until 7th grade, which most people think that is like linked with social awkwardness. So I'd like to dispel that rumor as much as I can. And the other one, which I tell everybody as much as I can, is that I put Warren Buffett in a headlock. So I got to visit Microsoft and go to the CEO summit, and he came up to me, or not came up to me, I came up to him, asked him for a picture, and he suggested that I put him in a headlock. So that's like my claim to fame. So yeah, that's it about me. If you have any questions, we're now going to move into the question and answer format. So you can message Emily if you have any specific questions.
Great, thanks, Evan. So we'll go ahead and get started. We have received a couple questions. The first one being, given that one of Kearney's goals on the client side is to double pro bono work, can you share some of the pro bono projects that have been implemented in the past? Who are some of your nonprofit clients and how have you supported their work to fight for racial equity?
Yes, I can take that one. There's a couple that come to mind, but happy to also take it offline to kind of go into more detail. But in a couple of years ago now, we did a pretty extensive project with the Chicago Police Department, really focused on kind of training within the police department and covering a few different topics was one. And then we've also did a project with ELC, which is the Executive Leadership Council, which is the kind of preeminent organization that's focused on putting more Blacks in the C-suite and on boards, and we helped them come up with their kind of 5-year strategy. And now we actually have one of our partners, Leslie Parker, is a member of the ELC, and we're continuing to stay actively involved with them. So it's a couple that come to mind, but I know there's others. There's other work that we've done. A lot of times it gets kind of sponsored out of different offices where you've got different folks or partners who have connections within the city. So there's a lot of stuff that we've done within New York City as well. But that's just a couple examples.
Great. And then could the panelists provide some personal experiences in participating in Kearney's different diversity networks?
I can talk quickly about my experience. I joined the Atlanta office 2 years ago, and there wasn't really a presence of East Asia Diversity Network. And so I reached out to the leads for that and became the Atlanta office lead and was supported in, really driving some of their initiatives within the East Asia Network Diversity Group. One of the things that we got to do was I hosted a sushi rolling class in the Atlanta office, actually. So I got all the ingredients and taught everyone how to do that. That was like the fun side, but obviously we have initiatives around like recruiting and engagement, also getting, we had fireside chats where some of the partners and principals that were a part of the diversity group came and did talks to us about, what it's like being in our position and what their experience at Kearney has been like. And I found that the Diversity Network has been a huge resource to me. I've become good friends with them, asked them for advice, like some of the more senior associates and stuff. So it's been really helpful for me, and it gave me an opportunity to have a leadership position within my office and really drive some events and some changes.
Yeah, I can go next. So my participation with Black at Kearney started very early. So I'm part of an organization called Management Leadership for Tomorrow. So the person who interviewed me was now a principal named Dominique Harris. And so the touch points kind of started very early. And I had a call from actually Wade after I got my offer as well, which I'm actually a little offended. I never knew this story about your last name until now because we've done so much together. But I'll let it go. But yeah, so it started very early. We have a professional development forum that we have every year, every 2 years that was last year, and got to meet people globally from the network as well. And then similar to what Wade mentioned, we have recruiting initiatives, Executive Leadership Council and Management Leadership for Tomorrow, which allow us to connect with each other, but also to pass back resources. So that's probably the most or the extent of what I do. And I don't know if, Wade, you want to add anything else to that?
No, I think you covered it well.
Great. And then how does the culture at the firm help support and amplify diverse voices in the workplace?
I can answer that one. So I'm a member of the PROUD Network, which is the firm's LGBTQ plus global network. So we host a series of events throughout the year at for both the members and the allies to kind of raise issues, topics, and discuss things that are ongoing and that the people in the community have faced in the past. We also we have boot camps as recruiting initiatives. We work with external organizations. Within the network as well, we have check-ins with each other. We have happy hours, especially now during COVID. We have senior leadership checking and making sure everyone's heard, everyone's feeling all right, and things like that. And within Proud, we have different pillars that we have people identified for, and they all work for different policies and to make sure whatever new policy we roll out is being there's visibility amongst everybody, both members, allies, and the rest of Kearney folks.
Great. And then the next question, just changing it up, how has COVID affected your interactions with clients and travel?
Well, it's ended all travel, so that one's easy. I could start, but I'd love to hear it because my experience is unique in that I've been on the same account and the same project. I actually just counted; it's been 20 months, which is pretty insane to me. But just goes to show you build really strong and deep relationships that you can end up working with folks for a really long time. So yeah, just joking a little bit on the travel, but yeah, so we have as a firm put a halt on all travel since mid-March, and I think we have some partners who are traveling here and there, but very limited at this point, and some of it just comes down to also making sure that the clients would be comfortable having us on site at some point. So that's all kind of things being considered. From a client interaction standpoint, it's interesting. And I'd love to hear from folks who've started new projects with new clients. With my existing clients, it's almost actually formed like it's a new spin on like the relationships we've had, because you're getting a view into everyone's house. Like you guys are seeing into my apartment right now, and everyone's dressing much more casually. Like we're not putting on dress shirts every day, which I'm a big fan of. And it's given, like I had one of my clients, his son who just went off to college, was like in the background, like installing a light bulb one day. And like, so it's just giving you this like access into some part of someone's life that you otherwise wouldn't have had. And it's almost kind of broken down some of these barriers that always feel a little more formal when you're like in an office setting or wearing like dress clothes and that kind of stuff. So I've actually taken that as an opportunity to kind of build deeper relationships and new kind of taking a new spin on it. But I was fortunate enough to have known and worked with these folks for over a year leading up to kind of being shut down and being remote. So I don't know if anyone has an example of any new relationships that they had to build and how that went.
So I'm actually working on a new project right now, and it started remotely, but thankfully enough, the partners were able to get on the ground and meet everyone, and so we hit the ground running. I will say it is a very different sort of experience, as Wade mentioned, but it has its positives because I think people are a bit more open now. Our clients, see us at all hours of the day, and so it's just a more closely knit relationship. And of course, technology helps, and it's very easy for me to hop on a phone with my clients and have a video on, which is not something I think we used enough of before. So I definitely appreciate the flexibility it gives us.
Great, thanks, Nadia. How do you approach clients whose values around diversity and inclusion are not the same as Kearney's? Is Kearney selective about the type of clients they choose to work with in this regard?
I can also take that one. It certainly depends, and I have not. I haven't been in a position where I've encountered a client where I think that there's been something that is drastically opposed to our values or something that I found like offensive and inappropriate. If so, I certainly know the avenues that I would take, and I would feel very comfortable raising that to the partners and the leaders that I work with to make sure that was addressed. That being said, I've heard examples from other folks where there have been cases where something was said that was inappropriate, or a comment was made around somebody's race or sexual orientation, and from the leaders that I've had the opportunity to work with, that they've said that in those situations that either they addressed it directly, or someone that was the more senior person in the room addressed it directly. And I have heard examples where partners have ended client relationships and ended projects because of something that was said that they didn't feel was acceptable. So not only a couple examples I've heard of that, but I'm not sure if anyone else has, but it's something that I think hopefully everyone would feel comfortable knowing that if they saw something that they thought was inappropriate or unacceptable, that they would know to who the right kind of channels to go through to make sure that was addressed, and that it wasn't something that we would allow to happen in the clients that we would work with.
Thanks, Wade. So do our diversity networks help push for wider transparency on hiring and promotions?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Do our diversity networks help push for wider transparency on hiring as well as promotions?
I think that the short answer is yes, and I could speak specifically in like my role within Black at Kearney. It's something that we have a big emphasis on working with the recruiting teams to make sure that we're putting resources, time, energy against recruiting diverse talent. Evan mentioned he came through MLT. MLT is an organization that we partner with to make sure we're having access to diverse talent. And then I know as a leadership team for the Black at Kearney network that we're very focused on our consultants and members once they're in, and how they're tracking, how their performance, time and grade, all those things. And I know there's similar efforts across the other diversity networks. I don't know if anyone has the examples they want to share, but I know I know some of the leaders within the Proud network, and there's an equal emphasis, I would say, put in that, and I'm assuming the same across the networks, women networks, the other diversity networks we mentioned.
Yeah, similarly, we do the same thing, Wade, for the Women's Network, and we partner with Forte. And Emily and Caroline can answer more questions if people have them offline as they work with me on it. So if you have any more questions, please route them our way. But we partner with Forte, and we try to really bring in high talent individuals into the firm and make sure they succeed both in their summer internships, but also when they join us full time, and make sure that we're providing all the support that they need.
Great, thank you. So what are some of the best skills needed, especially as a first-year analyst?
I can answer that to some extent. I think asking questions is one of the most important things. A lot of people try to solve things on their own without being afraid to ask questions. So ask as many questions as you can. Learn to start asking the right questions. Second is you would be working with the data and the analysis piece of whatever project you're on. That would likely be the case. So get comfortable with tools like Excel and other analytical tools, perhaps Tableau or Power BI. And some of the soft skills which you will develop over time is communication, writing very crisp emails to clients, putting all your thoughts into a slide succinctly, things like that.
Great, and then just to be cognizant of time, one last question. As a business analyst, does one have the choice to participate in pro bono engagements or projects? How often do these opportunities arise?
So the answer is yes. There's absolutely opportunities to do that. I don't know the exact percentage, but they certainly exist. I would say that it's a smaller percentage, just like so that we're all on the same page in terms of expectations. Like, we are in a for-profit business at the end of the day, so the majority of work you do will be working on billable projects or in the pursuit of billable work. But those projects do exist, and there isn't a restriction on a level in terms of how you can get engaged.
Just a plus one that way.
Go
ahead, Nick. I was going to say just a plus one that we also have social impact, like projects in each office that you can get, like be a part of, and those, even though they won't be the same extent as like a full-fledged project, you can still make impact by partnering with organizations in your community. And we're actually have like a much more intentional focus on having more social impact projects in like our pipeline.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as a senior analyst, I'm actually working on a project within the social impact group that Evan was just talking about. So, you know, they were looking for people that were willing to support, basically serve as consultants to this nonprofit. I'm actually working with a group in Colombia that's helping to fight deforestation of the Amazon. And, you know, I just volunteered, told them my background, and I was like passionate about helping out, and especially in Latin countries. And so they signed me up, and now I'm, you know, providing support for this nonprofit. So, I mean, it's just as long as you're reaching out and finding out what's available and staying connected within those groups, it's definitely a possibility.
Great, thanks, Nikki. And thank you to all of our panelists. We definitely appreciate all of your answers and information today. So again, thank you for attending our webinar today. If your question was not answered, please feel free to send an email to careers.ug@kearney.com, and someone on our recruiting team will definitely go ahead and get those questions answered for you. But thank you again, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your night.